Hey there, welcome to day 1136 of What's She Up To Now. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here, documenting my journey, my offline to online journey, as I move from the brick and mortar corporate world of businesses, like a whole bunch of them, at least 27 different industries I've been involved in. And I spent over a quarter century in corporate America. Yes, that means I'm pretty old, but I'm cool with it because that means I had lots of experiences, lots of lessons learned that I can share with you so that you don't have to bang your head against the wall or throw spaghetti on the wall and see that what sticks, because I can tell you what's worked for me and what hasn't worked for me. Now, does that mean it will or will not work for you? Absolutely not. Everything I say, everything anyone else you listen to or learn from says, including your coach, if you have one, you have to take and filter it through. Really, does this make sense for me? Now, as a coach and as having coaches over the decades, I've learned that sometimes our coaches will tell us things that we don't want to hear, some things that are hard for us to hear. I'm doing a person's challenge right now, a really good motivational speaker's challenge right now, which is really interesting, but a lot of tough love in it. Actually, I'm doing two different programs, and not one programs. One's a challenge, and one is I'm reading a whole bunch of material by somebody that my son introduced me to and uncovered as a great source of reality and real information and different ways of looking at things that I've definitely looked at for the last 40 years in a very different way. What happens when we do that? We open up our eyes to different possibilities and different perspectives, which leads me to today's topic. And I will say with 100% certainty and belief now, I wouldn't have said it a few years ago, but I'll say it now. There is no such thing as a missed opportunity. None. If you look at an opportunity and you think you've missed it, sometimes we tell ourselves, oh, that was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. There is no such thing. I will say this as well. There is no such thing as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If it looks like it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, it's usually people going back and with, hindsight being 2020, saying, oh, if I would have bought Apple stock 20 years ago, if I would have bought, we used to say P&G in my day, P&G stock, Procter & Gamble, or 3M, Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing, or now some of the tech stocks people will say, oh, if I bought Google or Facebook stock or whatever, I would be super duper wealthy or rich by now. If only. If we're living in if onlys because we missed an opportunity, what are we doing? We're living in the past. We didn't do it. Maybe we didn't have the money at the time. Maybe it wasn't even in our radar that buying stocks or investing in something would be valuable to us in the future. None of us are fortune tellers, and so we do the best we can at the time, given the information and the previous experiences that we've had. Given that, it's impossible for us to miss an opportunity that is for us. If by for us, I mean it's the right opportunity at the right time, and we're able and willing to take advantage of it. Opportunities are infinite and around us all the time. Opportunities to have an idea, opportunities to get involved in a certain business or occupation or in a relationship. They are swirling around us in the universe all the time, just for us to reach up and pluck one out and decide which one we're going to take action on. But if we believe that I missed that once in a lifetime opportunity and we're living in that reality, because we can create that reality for ourselves. We can tell ourselves over and over again that we missed our once in a lifetime opportunity because we didn't go to college, because we didn't ask this person out, because we didn't do something or we didn't act at the time. And we can have a miserable life because we keep telling ourselves that story. Or we can say, hey, wait a minute, this is an incredibly abundant universe. There are always millions and millions of ideas, if not infinite ideas and possibilities and opportunities swirling around. What do I want to explore? What do I want to look into? And when we ask ourselves the right question and we look for the opportunities, all of a sudden we have more opportunities than we know what to do with. But when we close ourselves off and we tell ourselves lies, because they're absolutely excuses and lies, that, oh, I missed out on that thing, or, she got that promotion and I didn't, or he married her, not me. Good grief, boy, that's a sad one if we're thinking that. But millions of people are. I guarantee there are millions of people right now, or even tens of millions or hundreds of millions of people thinking and dwelling in the past and saying, oh my gosh, I missed out on this. And because of that, this is why my life is the way it is right now. Really? No. Our lives are the way they are right now. And I'm talking to myself right now. Let's be honest. I am talking to myself absolutely positively, because there are areas and aspects of my life that I have just stopped and settled for. And I look around and I'm like, really? You're sitting here with a bunch of teddy bears. What is up with that? That needs to change. Is it comfortable? Sure. But whenever we're living and staying in our comfort zone, we're not growing and we're not being the best version of ourselves. And when we're not growing and continuing to improve and being the best version of ourselves, who are we lying to? Well, we're lying to the whole wide world, right? We're being a fraud to the whole wide world, but we're also, more importantly, lying to ourselves and making ourselves think everything's okay. This is just fine. I can be this way, and it won't impact anybody else. Guess what? It won't impact anybody else, but that's the point. We're not here to just do the minimum to get by and be fine. I did a whole, I'm sure I have a video on it somewhere about the word fine. And I realized probably 15, 20 years ago that if someone asked me how I was doing and I said fine, only a few people knew, but that meant I was doing super duper bad. Fine was as low as I would communicate to other people how I was doing. But if I said fine, I was either really sick physically, I was struggling with some other area or aspect of my life in a really big way. But I would say, oh, I'm fine, because we put that facade on for corporate America. We put that mask on for other people, so they don't really know, oh my God, I'm human and I am falling to pieces in this area or aspect of my life. I'm not going to let it affect my work. I'm not going to let it affect my business, but this is really hard to deal with while I'm still trying to put a shiny, nice face or mask on for the people that I'm interacting with on a daily basis. So interesting. Missed opportunity. Love to know your take on missed opportunity. Do you believe that, you've missed out on huge opportunities? I guarantee every single one of us on the planet have missed a whole lot of opportunities, mainly because we never even saw them. They were right in front of our eyes, and we were filtering them out because we weren't ready. We didn't even see them. So that's my rant today, I guess. What else am I doing? And probably why I thought of it today is for Supersize Your Business, our proverb today was, if you snooze, you lose. And I didn't know this, and I was interested to find out. It actually became really, really popular from a 1968 TV commercial for a mattress store in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Now, I know people in Oshkosh. I've been to Oshkosh. I like Oshkosh, but I thought it was funny that Wilbur Kroskowski and his wife, he was the owner of the mattress store, he did the commercial, and his wife wrote the commercial, and it took off and was very, very popular at the time. Remember back in the days when all we had was television and just a few television stations back in those days? It was a very different world, and how people were influenced and saw things and got messages. And so it took a longer time for idioms and expressions and proverbs to become known, because they had to be passed by word of mouth and then media through the newspaper or through book publishing or through plays or through performances or entertainment or through television when television came onto the scene. I know many of you probably don't even remember when television came onto the scene. It was a little bit before my time, but we grew up, we always had a television in the house when I was a little girl. We didn't have one in every room. We didn't have one above every bed. Or fireplace. We didn't have, dozens in our house like people do now, but we had one. And the family would gather around Sunday nights usually and watch The Wonderful World of Disney, or whatever it was called back then. We'd watch Disney, and we'd get upset if it was like a boring documentary thing versus one of the more fun pieces that Disney put on back then. But remember, we didn't have any choice. There weren't choices. You could watch that or the news or probably a sporting event. That was it. And given the choices, Disney was the one that would win out, because there were 4 of us little girls and my mom usually and my dad. So we'd all agree to watch something. But those were when we didn't have a lot of options and choices. Now, I think as humans, we're almost overwhelmed with the number of possibilities and options and choices and opportunities that we're faced with. There are so many things vying for our time and our attention. Heard it said, and I don't remember who said this, but it wasn't that long ago. They said we've gone from being in the information age. Remember, we were in the industrial age, then the information age. Now we've moved into the attention age, the age of attention. And we need to steel ourselves against, literally protect ourselves against the forms of attention, the things that are drawing us in and sucking us in and taking our attention, and in a lot of instances stealing our life, stealing our ability to think for ourselves, stealing our thoughts and feelings and emotions, and hijacking them through different forms of media and different forms of attention-getting activities that really aren't adding value to our lives. You know, I gave up watching the news in the mid-1980s. It was part of a challenge of a training program that I was going through at Procter & Gamble, one of my first jobs out. Well, it was my actual first real job out of college. Before that, I had had internships and summer jobs with big companies, but it was the first step in my professional corporate career. And I was in a training that was really coveted. All of us wanted to go, especially all the managers in the organization. And I got to go to that pretty early in my career. And one of the things the leaders and facilitators of the training said was, turn off your TV, turn off your television. Now remember, this was before the internet. This was before any of that. They said, turn off your TV. This whole week of this training, we challenge you to not watch television at all. And let's see what happens in your lives. And that was probably one of the longest lasting, most profound things that I took away from that training. There was a whole lot of other things. It was great training. It was one of my first forays into understanding that we could do things to make our life and create our life, make our life better, to control our outcomes. Now, this was in a corporate setting, so it was a pretty watered down version of personal development and growth, but it was still significantly more than I had experienced in my short life at the time. And so it was very impactful and very powerful. But one of the things that I did was I gave up the habit of going home after work and turning on the news, or always popping into the news every day. And by giving up that habit, all of a sudden, I had to think for myself. I had to look for different ways to find out what was going on in the world than just watching the straight newscast. Now, back then, it was still news for the most part, and it probably was a little bit of editorialization, but they called that out in separate segments. Nowadays, all of our news is I don't even think you can call it news. You can call it information sharing, or propaganda, or rumor spreading, rumor mongering, because that's more of what we're getting nowadays than actual news. And I don't even watch it because I want to be able to think for myself. I encourage everyone to do the same. Go 1 week, especially if during this COVID pandemic you have been sucked into, and I admit I've been sucked in. I've watched more movies in the last year on the different platforms. Netflix, what do we got? Netflix, HBO Max, Hulu, used to be Popcorn Time, but I don't think we're using that anymore. But on just those, I've literally watched more movies probably in the last year than I have in maybe my entire life, right? I don't know. Maybe. You used to have to go to the theater. The only way you could watch movies was you went to the theater. Now everything streams, and we have instant access to everything, which is good and bad, right? It's good, but it's bad. It's easy to sit down in front of your computer, even on your cell phone or on another device, and just zombie out for 2 hours or for 30 minutes at a time for 4 episodes of a show, and not even realize that you've just donated your attention, all of your potential, to an inanimate thing that doesn't care one bit about whether you watched it or not. So interesting. Our Do One Thing Every Day That Centers You, our Alan Ewell challenge today, was about making someone else happy or some other creature happy. When you get up today, or when you hear that message, what can you do to positively impact the life of someone or something else? Maybe you have a pet. How can you positively impact the life of your pets? I said I'm going to give the puppies a treat today. The dogs get a treat today because they haven't got one for a few days, and they've been very good with the new baby. So I'm going to do that. That's what I'll do. And is that a big deal? No. But you know what? It is so fun to give the dogs a treat and reward them. They do a little trick, they get a treat. They don't even have to do a trick. Sometimes we just say, take it pretty, and they take it nicely. That's training, but it's also letting people know how we want to be treated. How we treat other people and other living beings is demonstrating how we want to be treated. So if you fly off the handle and yell and scream or swear at people, and then they yell and scream and fly off the handle and swear at you and treat you disrespectfully, how can we get mad when that's how we treat people? We can get mad about anything we want, but are we really being authentic and true and honest and in integrity with ourselves, or are we just acting out of habits and emotions, when sometimes it's just like, take a deep breath, man, it's just not worth it. So curious how you doing today? Seriously, how are you doing today? You know, we're 3 months into 2021. I got a big birthday coming up on Friday, another big one. I had a big one last year and another big one. I guess every year when you reach a certain age, they're all a big deal. You know, every day above ground's a good day. One of my first motivational speaker things that I went to, one of the gentlemen said, every day above ground is a good day. And I thought, well, that's an incredible perspective, because that means every single day you wake up and you're grateful for waking up. And if you start your day in gratitude just by being grateful for waking up, that means you've already won. You've already won your day. And I liked it. It resonated with me back then, but it wasn't until 30 years later, and I had a sudden cardiac arrest, that I really appreciated and thought, oh my God, I actually know what he means. I feel what he means every single day. I am grateful to wake up. It is an amazing, good day. All right, that's it. Have an amazing day. If I can help you in a way, if you have a question and you don't know who to ask, please at least reach out and ask me. The one thing I learned, I was talking to my son about this yesterday, is I went through a certification program for an online program when I first decided I was going to go from the offline world to the online world. And in that, I knew that I didn't have any of the technological or the online experience that the majority of people going through the program have. And so that made me shut down and tell myself, I got to figure this all out myself. I got to figure out, I've got to learn it. I have to ask the questions and answer them myself, so I really learn this information so I can catch up with and get the most out of this particular certification. And I went through it and I struggled with it. Most of the things I figured out and could figure out with just a few tries and a couple of things. There were a couple of times during that certification process where I was freaking struggling with the same little thing for like a week. And after a week, I was getting frustrated. I had done everything I could think of to possibly troubleshoot and get the answer on my own. And usually there were only 2 times I let this happen, but I let it go a week or maybe 2 weeks. And the content was released on a once a week basis. So you'd get content. Well, then if I hadn't figured out the lesson for that week and the new week's content came out, usually I was fighting, you know, nipping at the bit, trying to get the information sooner, but you couldn't do that in the program because it was already, you know, pre-done and evergreen. But for like 2 weeks out of that, I was not done. The new release of information came out, and it caused this explosion of overwhelm and frustration in me, because all of a sudden there was all this new information and new tasks to do, and I hadn't finished the previous week's assignment. And so on those occasions, we had a group, we had a Facebook group, private group for the group of being certified in this technology, and we could ask questions. Well, as soon as I asked the question, even before anybody could answer on the group call or on the Facebook group, I knew the answer. I figured out the answer and I figured it out. That happened twice during that training. But the lesson for me wasn't that I needed to ask and not get frustrated. The lesson was I needed to ask as soon as I was struggling with it and I had exhausted my current resources, so that I never got to the level of being frustrated or overwhelmed by it, because that was all of my own creation. Had I asked on, say, the 3rd or 4th day, after I'd tried all the things that I knew of, because then after the second, or usually the first day, I was just hunting and pecking and trying to figure out ways of figuring it out that were not very effective. But as soon as I opened up myself to asking, all of a sudden I had the answer, and that made life a whole lot easier. So now I'm a lot better about asking. I still resist it sometimes, especially if it's something that I know I should be able to figure out on my own, and I'm somehow blocking it. I want to break through the block I'm having about that thing, and then I want to break through the block I'm having about asking. I don't know where the idea, maybe because I grew up with a lot of sisters, and my mom was sick when I was little. We just learned to not ask for things unless it was really, really urgent and important. And I didn't realize that, but that might exactly be where that came from, is my mom was really, really sick with a rare blood disease when we were little girls. And I bet that's where that came from, is like, hey, just figure it out yourself. And we didn't have, you know, lots of help. We had somebody that would help us, and babysitters and stuff when my mom was at Mayo, but we just figured stuff out. We didn't ask, especially my sister and I, the oldest ones of us. We just figure things out. All right. That's all I've got. Have an amazing day. I will, of course, be with you tomorrow for day, what is it, 1,130, I don't even know, 37 maybe? Yep, I'm guessing 37. This is why I put tabs in my book so I can find. Yep, so 1136 today, so 1137 tomorrow. Have a great day, and I'll, of course, see you tomorrow. Bye.